Story 1. Arthur Morgan in Red Dead Redemption 2. I even had the story spoiled before I played the game. I knew what would happen, and it still affected me deeply. The second playthrough was no better. The sheer amount of character they put into him and the story is exceptional. Story 2. Thomas J. Sennett. Where are his glasses? He cannot see without his glasses. Gets me every time. Story 3. Lieutenant Colonel Hughes from Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Story 4. Bing Bong from Inside Out. Take her to the moon for me, okay? Story 5. Charlotte and Charlotte's Web was very moving for me. Story 6. Sweets. When I tell you I cried for days. Bones was never the same. Story 7. When Leslie from Bridge to Terabithia died, I was definitely distraught. I read that book at a very young age. I did not even comprehend that young girls could die. Traumatized me. Story 8. The man who gets killed on the bridge in Dante's Peak has a look of helplessness as he is thrown into the raging landslide. That entire scene is incredibly well done in terms of visual effects. It felt very real. The scene with the elderly woman is also traumatic. That movie was truly terrifying. Story 9. Prim from the Hunger Games made me sob so hard when I read that part. Story 10. John Locke from the television show Lost was used his whole life, finally felt special, and then was used again only to die for nothing. So sad. Story 11. Jin Sakai's horse in Ghost of Tsushima collapses in the burning forest and snow from arrow wounds. Gasping for its last breaths. Its eyes look up to Jin. Jin kneels down and says to his beloved dying horse, "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you." Story 12. Phew, man. Avocado from Final Space. Nora Fries from Arkham Knight. Ellie from Up. Bing Bong from Inside Out. The Old Man from The Shawshank Redemption. Shireen from Game of Thrones. Potter from Game of Thrones. Scarlett Johansson from Jojo Rabbit. The Dog from Futurama. Yondu from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. The Animals from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Sarah Lynn from BoJack Horseman. The whole cast from Blackadder Season 4. Story 13. Lee from The Walking Dead game. I sobbed my heart out while the credits rolled. Story 14. Amber from House. The whole scene with Wilson turning off the bypass machine gets me every single time. Closely followed by Otis from Chicago Fire. Even more poignant when Cruz finds out what Otis' last words to him were in English. "Brother, I will be with you always." Story 15. A dog or any type of lovable animal that dies in a movie. Story 16. Triss from Divergent. I was 16 and started crying in class when I finished the book. Story 17. I cried as a child when Sirius Black and Albus Dumbledore died in the books, not the movies. Story 18. Man, it has got to be Mufasa. Like, that scene hit hard as a kid and still messes me up now. I cannot even watch The Lion King without tearing up. Story 19. I was very upset when they killed off John from Peaky Blinders. And Polly. Story 20. Karen Murphy in the Dresden Files. I saw it coming 2 pages before it happened, but that did not lessen the hurt. Story 21. It is so good, I refuse to give spoilers. Watch the first 5 seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Story 22. Littlefoot's mom in The Land Before Time. The scenes afterward with him lying in the footprint, confusing his shadow for hers, and the one afterward with old Rooter make me bawl. Story 23. Kamina. Against the top Gurren Lagann. Everybody happy, finally beat the big boss. Then he showed his last smile. Story 24. Ellie's story in Up is one that really hits home. Her life with Carl is shown through little moments. Fixing up their house, saving for an adventure, and living together day by day. It is relatable because their dreams keep getting sidetracked by real life. When Ellie dies, it is not just sad because she is gone, but because she and Carl did not get to live out the big adventure they wanted. At the same time, their life together was the adventure. Story 25. I post this every time someone asks about it. Colonel Henry Blake from Mobile Army Surgical Hospital. When Radar comes into the operating room to say his plane went down, so sad. Story 26. Detective Frost from Rizzoli and Isles, the actor committed suicide, and the show did a beautiful tribute. Story 27. I watched General Hospital in my early teens. When I was 13, one of my favorite characters died, and my best friend and I spent a week mourning and feeling hysterical. A week later, he was found alive and recast. After that, I tried to turn off all emotions because I had felt so empty and then so angry. Story 28. The Horse in Black Beauty. I haven't read or watched an animal movie or book since. It has been 30 years. Story 29. Jared, a character in Judging Amy, died in real life. The phone call in which Maxine, Amy's mother, receives the news that he had died 48 hours before their wedding was devastating. Story 30. Actually, I take that back. New answer. Wayne from Mistborn. He was such an amazing character. So funny. Add 2 and 2 and get a pickle. I'm investigating alternative states of sobriety. It is lucky. I have never died while wearing that hat. Story 31. Adriana La Serva. If only she loved herself a little, she might have had a chance. Story 32. This is very specific, but Noah from The Walking Dead is the only fictional character death I have ever sobbed over. I truly was not expecting to react that way. He was so young, so kind, and he died in so much pain. I could not deal with it, especially since he was only a couple of years older than me at the time. Story 33. Warwick Brown, crime scene investigator. Susie Salmon, The Lovely Bones. Dr. Green, emergency room. Opie and Bobby, Sons of Anarchy. Story 34. A cat from Aaron Hunter's Warrior Cats named Silverstream died from birth complications. I was sobbing in my bed at 11 years old. An honorable mention is Marco Bot from Attack on Titan. I still think about his death. I watched that episode in 2014 and was shocked when the truth came out. Story 35. Guido Orifice is the father in Life is Beautiful. I was about 8 when my family decided to rent that one at Blockbuster. I was not ready for that movie. That and Grave of the Fireflies truly traumatized me. Story 36. Denny Duquette from Grey's Anatomy. There seemed to be a lot of pollen in the air that night. Story 37. McDreamy. I stopped watching when he left the Grey's world. Story 38. Wallace, Bodie, Omar, and D'Angelo from The Wire all affected me deeply. Story 39. Read All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker. It's a slow burn but very emotional. I cried a lot when the doctor. Story 40. Beth Wilder from Quantum Break lately comes to my mind. At a very young age, she receives a notebook from her future self containing all events to happen, including deaths, the September 11th attacks, and the plot of the game, The Fracture in Time. She witnesses all events and fails to stop them despite every conceivable effort based on the Novikov self-consistency principle. She has to watch the man she eventually has to help grow up. The fracture in time happens. After years of training and watching, she finally meets him. She helps Jack Joyce, finds a time machine, and tries going back to find critical equipment to fix the fracture in time. A doctor betrays her and sends her to the future, where time is stopped. She stays for an indeterminate time and escapes to 1999. She was born around 1990. She lives through the next 11 years all over again, including trying to stop the September 11th attacks for a second time. She is noticeably more tired and despairing. She meets Jack Joyce in 2010, despite only minutes passing for him since he last saw her. The Ground Zero event happens. Jack is pushed back to 2016. Paul, the antagonist, shoots her in the head in 2010. Story 41. I have never cried so much about a fictional character's death as I did with the father from This Is Us. I am talking full-blown sobs and tears. The works. I knew it was coming but did not expect it to be as gut-wrenching as it was. Story 42. Going Mary. She is a character no matter what anyone says. Story 43. Ash Lynx from Banana Fish. The character had a difficult life. If you enjoy an anime where chaos unfolds in every episode, I highly recommend it. Story 44. Aerith in Final Fantasy VII. Erwin Smith in Attack on Titan. Boromir in Lord of the Rings. Story 45. I am not among my people because Draco and Hermione in Manacles really hit home. Story 46. Only two fictional deaths have ever made me cry. Mufasa when I watched The Lion King for the first time at age 5, and Vegeta sacrificing himself when I was 6. As an adult, I think the saddest ones were either Draco in Dragonheart or Boromir. Story 47. Michael in Jane the Virgin. I think the way Jane acts when she gets the phone call really captures the devastation. I watched that episode when I was pregnant and very emotional and cried my eyes out. My husband came home and thought something horrible had happened until I managed to tell him about the show. Story 48. Lenny Small in Of Mice and Men. I read that John Steinbeck book for the first time in high school. I absolutely did not see it coming. Story 49. Artax from the never-ending story being swallowed by his own despair in the swamp of sadness. That broke my heart into a million pieces. I am 36 years old now and I would still cry watching that scene. Story 50. John Coffey in The Green Mile or Lexi Gray in Grey's Anatomy. Story 51. Sybil from Downton Abbey was very disturbing and difficult to watch. Story 52. Patroclus. Yes, from the Iliad. I am still sad over Hector's death too. Story 53. Brooke's farewell in The Shawshank Redemption broke my heart beyond words. Story 54. George O'Malley. Writing that is enough to make me depressed. Story 55. Dutch detective Inspector van der Valk is a creation and a victim of Nicholas Freeling. Story 56. Most recent for me was Varel in Horizon Forbidden West. So unfair. Story 57. The protagonist is shot and killed along with the woman he tried to extract. The book ends with machine gun fire on a fence. Not all great stories have happy endings, and I dislike that. Story 58. I know there are worse deaths out there, but Hank from Breaking Bad affected me deeply. Story 59. Turin Turambar from the Silmarillion, also known as Woodwose, the Wild Man of the Woods, Nethan, the Wronged, Gorthal, the Dreadhelm, Agerwen, Bloodstained, Son of Ill Fate, Adainhel, Elfman, Thurin, the Secret, Mormagil, Black Sword, Master of Doom, Dagnar Glorunga, Dagnar's Bane, Naramarth, and Evil Fated. I know that Turin was a little annoying, but honestly, he had such a tragic life. He took his own life soon after finding out that his long-lost sister committed suicide. Story 60. Pussy from Orange is the New Black had to take a break from the show afterward. Story 61. Nadia from Chicago Police Department had a hard life. Just as things were starting to turn around for her, she was murdered. Story 62. Howard Hamlin from Better Call Saul is not a good man, but he does not deserve the way he died. Story 63. Vegeta. Story 64. Professor Dumbledore. I was 14, and it hurt so much. Story 65. My top saddest character deaths have all been mentioned already. Thank you for bringing up these memories again. I want to add Arden and Noctis Lucas Selim from Final Fantasy XV. Deos from Tales of Fantasia also affected me deeply, which was my own fault because I played Tales of Symphonia and watched the Tales of Fantasia original video animation before playing the game. I did not expect that last-minute plot twist. I was genuinely impressed. Story 66. The dog waited outside the pizza shop for Fry to return. Story 67. Colton's death at the end of the chain of dogs in Deadhouse Gates. Story 68. Mordin. Had to be me. Somebody else would have gotten it wrong. What a man. Story 69. Manchi from the Chaos Walking series. He was the best boy. Story 70. Ironically, Koro-sensei, even though the whole show was about how to kill him. Story 71. Paul Strobe. I still think about this much more than I should. Story 72. Jessica, the titular character of a Bryce Courtney novel. The only time I have ever ugly cried, with streaming tears and a runny nose, while reading. Story 73. Lexa from the Tricru tribe had a tragic death for a warrior like her. Story 74. John Locke from Lost. At the lowest point of his life, after he had realized that he would never fulfill his ambitions or be special, John attempted to hang himself. He was stopped at the last moment and led to believe that there was a chance he could finally be special and extraordinary. However, he was used one last time in his life and then killed in cold blood. Story 75. I do not want to spoil, but in the Netflix series One Day, I cried a lot in the last episode. Story 76. I don't know if it is because I was really young or what, but Bob Iapetus, in the House of Hades sacrificing himself for Percy and Annabeth absolutely took me out. I was in pieces. I sobbed like a baby when he says, "Tell the stars I said hello." I am tearing up just writing this comment. Story 77. Brock from God of War. I saw what happened to him before I got the game. It still messed me up. Story 78. Helen from I Know What You Did Last Summer. She fought so hard and went through so much. She deserved to live. Story 79. John Coffey in The Green Mile. I can never get through this part of the film without crying like a baby. Story 80. Legend of Galactic Heroes. However, I will not reveal which character because the new series is still ongoing. Story 81. Arthur Pendragon from the series Merlin. The only time I ever cried while watching a series. It made me sad for days. Story 82. Sasha from Attack on Titan made me very sad for days despite being one of the most honorable deaths in the whole show. Story 83. Mother 3 spoilers. I do not cry when characters die, but Claus's death made me tear up for the first time while playing a video game. Story 84. Rebecca from Cyberpunk. Edge Runners. I'm sorry we never got to finish our conversation, said Lucy Kushinada. Story 85. Javert in Les Miserables. The only character to die alone, unconsoled, and in despair. Story 86. Thomas in My Girl. When she was screaming that he needed his glasses, it makes me tear up just thinking about it. Story 87. Sirius Black. The brief chance Harry had at living with someone who could openly love him hurts me more the older I get. Story 88. Glenn from The Walking Dead. Newt from The Maze Runner. Dobby from Harry Potter. Story 89. Bruno and Shmuel together in The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. Laura's son Simone in The Orphanage. That one bothers me to this day. If you have not seen it and you enjoy thrillers in Spanish, you really should watch it. Story 90. A character from the video game Ghost of Tsushima. Story 91. Dumbo's mother. Baby mine just tears me up. I used to sing it to my children. The words are just so perfect. Story 92. Setsuko in Grave of the Fireflies. Pure misery. Absolutely heartbreaking. There are many other deaths in fiction that are gut punches. But you cannot watch the last 20 minutes of Grave of the Fireflies without your soul fracturing a bit. Story 93. Tech from The Bad Batch, a Star Wars, the Clone Wars spin-off series. He sacrificed himself so the rest of his team survived. Story 94. Orin from Final Fantasy X. I know he was dead from the start, but he was also present for the whole journey, so I became attached. His sending scene made me cry a lot. And Gilles Hule in Crisis Core. Final Fantasy VII. I am deeply saddened by the fact that he slowly lost himself with all that he witnessed and discovered, to the point he thought himself unworthy of life, just a monster to be eliminated to prevent being a problem to others. The worst part is that he must die so the events of Crisis Core can lead into the original Final Fantasy VII. He must pass his torch forward. As someone who also struggles with depression, I wish there was an alternate timeline where he managed to find a cure and live. And Sukuroku from Showa Jinroku Rakugo Shinju. Everything hurts. Story 95. George in Young Sheldon. I knew it was coming, but the timing was heartbreaking. Things between him and Mary were getting better. He couldn't see Sheldon off to California or witness him achieve his dream job. Story 96. Not a movie or show, but a game. Red Dead Redemption. Arthur Morgan. Story 97. Randy Meeks in Scream 2. He survived the entire first movie only to be killed in the second for rightfully talking badly about a Ghostface killer from the first movie. Also, Rem in Death Note because she was manipulated to sacrifice herself by killing Elle and Wadari. She literally killed 2 people, but did so to ensure that Misa would not be caught as Kira. Story 98. Probably a lesser-known one, but Danny Waldron died in the line of duty. After what he went through, he deserved something good. Story 99. Shocked that Iron Man did not make the list yet. I was very sad to see my beloved character die after a decade in such a heroic way in an amazing epic movie. Story 100. Henry from the Book of Henry, my dramatic self, was very sad about his death. So I decided to write a diary dedicated to my mother. I wrote, "Only read this when I am dead," in big, bold letters. However, my sneaky mother read my diary, and I am still not dead yet. Story 101. It is a tie between Dr. Janet Fraser and Daniel Jackson on Stargate SG-1. Story 102. Dan Espinosa's death in Lucifer made me cry throughout the entire chapter. Story 103. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure spoilers. Not the saddest moment, but shout out to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Caesar's death. Story 104. No fictional death affected me as deeply as the death of Lee in Telltale's The Walking Dead. Completely destroyed me. I cried for several days after that ending. I was genuinely grieving, and I cannot say I have felt like that before or since with any fiction. This is unusual because many stories have touched me on a deep level, but none have caused me to experience grief like that game did. I was also experiencing depression at the time, so perhaps that influenced my reaction. I also believe that the film A Ghost Story explores the concept of death in a very deep and emotional way that affected me profoundly. The ending impacted me so much that I could not even cry. I just had to sit in the dark for an hour and process the emotions the film evoked in me. I love when art manages to touch something deep, universal, and true inside you. That is very special. Story 105. Caroline from the song Tecumseh Valley comes to mind. Story 106. Maybe a bit obscure, but Nettie Cobb from Needful Things always stuck with me. She had a hard life. Story 107. Something different and a major spoiler, Hercule Poirot in Curtain. Story 108. Jack Sparrow's death in Dead Man's Chest broke me. Story 109. He screamed, and he would scream, and he would keep on screaming unendingly. Something touched him, a hand. He clutched at it as it shook him gently. A voice called, "Raced, wake up. It was only a dream. Don't be afraid. I won't let them hurt you. Here, watch. I'll make you laugh." The dragon's coils tightened, crushing his breath. Glistening black fangs ate his living organs, devoured his heart. Tearing into his body, they sought his soul. A strong arm encircled him, holding him close. A hand raised, gleaming with silver light, forming childish pictures in the night. The voice, dimly heard, whispered, "Look, raced, bunnies." He smiled, no longer afraid. Karaman was here. The pain eased. The dream was driven back. From far away, he heard a wail of bitter disappointment and anger. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered anymore. Now he just felt tired, so very, very tired. Leaning his head upon his brother's arm, Raistlin closed his eyes and drifted into a dark, dreamless, endless sleep. Story 110. Macaulay Culkin's character in My Girl is very sad. He needed his glasses. Story 111. The horse in the never-ending story traumatized me as a child. Story 112. Qui-Gon Jinn, if he survived, would change the whole plot, and Anakin would not turn to the dark side. Story 113. Spoilers for Horus Heresy. Garviel Loken was disappointing at first, but I moved on. He came back and became even more impressive. He survived until the last 20 pages of a 64-book, 20-year series and was stabbed in the back, literally, by the most hated character in Warhammer. That absolutely stunned me. Story 114. Weirdly enough, Envy's death in Fullmetal Alchemist. Brotherhood always breaks me for some reason. It is so loud in emotions. Story 115. Tough choice between Draco in Dragonheart, 1996, and the Giant in The Iron Giant, 1999. It gets me every time. Just looking into The Iron Giant, why have I only now found out about the tragic death of voice actress Mary Kay Bergman? Story 116. Aerith from Final Fantasy VII. It has been 27 years, and I still cannot get over it. Story 117, of course, Gambit from X-Men. especially the pre-trial of his death in the latest series X-Men 97. Story 118. A Wind River girl ran away, then the officers were killed in the shootout at the camp. They were doing their jobs and were spooked but still kept going. Their deaths were unexpected and brutal. Story 119. Eddie from Stranger Things. He was one of the characters I related to the most. When he died, I was sad and angry. I am still not over it. Story 120. Ash from Banana Fish. Because this man, alright, he's been through a lot. Guns, violence, drugs, friends dying, and him almost dying. There was a point where his friend gave him a way out of this criminal life, and he's like, nah, I'ma die just because he knows his friend will be safer without him. Breaks my heart just hearing the opening and hearing, I'm Mr. Loverman and I miss my lover man. Story 121. I cannot believe no one has said this yet. Winifred Burkle was not just killed, but her soul was consumed. Not in heaven, hell, or another dimension. She was destroyed. Then, the thing that destroyed her walked around wearing her face. No fictional death will ever upset me more, I am sure. Story 122. Snape. I cry every time. He loved Lily so much. Story 123. Neil Perry in Dead Poets Society. I do not know why, but I cried for about 3 hours after the movie finished. Or maybe Chris Chambers in Stand By Me. Story 124. It is a far better thing that I do than I have ever done. It is a far better rest I go to than I have ever known. Story 125. John Coffey. I can't watch The Green Mile without crying. Story 126. Charlie Bradbury from Supernatural. She had it pretty rough. Story 127. Matthew Crawley from Downtown Abbey. I just knew it when he was driving down the road looking all happy. Still broke my heart. Story 128. Lelouch Lamperouge from Code Geass and Itachi Uchiha from Naruto are brothers who turned to the dark side to save their younger siblings and died protecting them. This always moves me deeply. Story 129. Mike from Attack on Titan. That one made me lose my appetite for a week. Story 130. Persona 3 spoilers. Makoto Yuki. Persona 3 spoilers. Story 131. There are many such deaths. Supernatural Dean. I did not watch the last episode. Joe and Bobby. Harry Potter Sirius, Hedwig, Dobby, Fred, and the Potters. The Vampire Diaries Cole. He had great potential to improve the show. Story 132. Mitty from Made in Abyss. The scene was written beautifully and in a realistic way. I loved it. Story 133. While Cuthbert is my favorite character in The Dark Tower, when Jake died, it was not a good time for me. Story 134. From the Jack West Jr. books by Matthew Riley, Max Epper, also known as Merlin and Wizard. It was unexpected, shocking, and memorable. I cried in school because I was reading during lunch. Story 135. Leomon in Digimon Tamers was disturbed and caused significant distress to Jerry. Story 136. For me, the saddest death of a fictional character was Kim CO1 from Daily Dose of Sunshine. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.